I missed bringing a mini PC back to the channel. I love these form factors, and I find them very convenient to use. But this isn't just any mini PC. And that's because this is the smallest and at the same time the most powerful mini PC currently on the market. And there's more. Check this out. And it doesn't need to be plugged in to work since it has its own built-in battery, which can last up to 25 hours. I've been testing it for a few weeks. In fact, I've used it for simple office tasks, for media playback, but also for editing videos with powerful editing programs, and even for gaming. I didn't think it would be able to handle them, but as you'll see next, it can also be used for that. And after all this time I've been testing it, I'm still amazed that something so small can be so powerful. That's right, the Khadas Mine 2. And you can already see how premium the unboxing is. It includes the charger. And check out this top quality cable, very similar to the ones included with Apple's mini PCs. Accessories that are, after all, of the highest quality. And now, let's take a look at this Khadas Mine 2. And the first thing that stands out, without a doubt, is its design. It's extremely lightweight. It's less than half a kilo. It's 400 and something grams. But above all, the thickness is 2 centimeters. And the thing is, on this channel, I've tested rugged smartphones that are thicker than this mini PC, which comes with the latest Intel Core Ultra 7. It's built entirely out of anodized aluminum, and honestly, it feels really good in the hand, very sturdy. Take a look at this button too. It also has good travel, the power button with an RGB light. And it also has several mounts on the back, so you can, for example, attach it to a screen or put it on the back of a monitor. And it also has this rubber tab that you can remove, and you can actually add an external GPU to it, and also several accessories that this brand includes, which honestly give this mini PC some extra power. And it also includes rubber pads that help it grip any surface. And now, let's move on to the ports. It would include a Thunderbolt 4, a USB Type-C, and HDMI 2.1 up to 18 GB per second, and 2 USB-A 3.2 Gen 2 ports. Also, on the top part, it includes those vents that indicate it's very well ventilated. On the other side, it has that opening for airflow, and that's because it includes a fan. The fan is magnetic, which I'll discuss later. The front has the button, and the other side has another outlet for the same fan. It features both active and passive heat dissipation, using a liquid cooling heat sink with an extra vapor chamber. Here's how the Khadas Mine 2 compares to my hand, just the fans button. When I try it, or compare it with my personal phone, in the case of the fan, by the way, my hand is simply spectacular. Ultra. It just came out. You already have the review on my channel. And look, the differences at some angles are really incredible, especially considering what I'm going to talk about. About a mini PC with dual cooling and one of the most powerful CPUs that exist today. And it's also the first one I've tested on this channel that has its own battery, so you don't need to keep it plugged in. I've tested it for video editing with Adobe Premiere, and it worked perfectly for me. And also, listen to how it sounds, what the fan on this Khadas Mine 2 sounds like. It's not the quietest I've tried, nor the loudest. I think it has a certain balance, although it's clear that with that size it needs the fan to always be on. By the way, it includes its own software. Here you can decide if this mini PC uses the battery or runs directly on power. Obviously, when you plug it into power, it has more power than when it uses the battery. And what I would recommend, especially if you're only using the battery, is to use Office or multimedia programs and not so much for games, as you'll see next. That's where I'd most recommend plugging it directly into power. Also, you can see all the updates it has had, and you can update all the devices you can add to this Khadas. For example, as you can see this external GPU that you can buy and snap onto this Khadas Mine 2 like Lego. And something I like is that the one I have has already been updated twice. In fact, look, an update just came out, And that's something you always appreciate with this kind of device, that the brand doesn't just abandon them right away. And also, check this out, because behind this magnetic plate, which I actually think is a pretty sophisticated solution, simple but very useful, you can install an extra SSD of up to 2 TB capacity. This model, by the way, includes 1 TB of internal PCIe 4.0 storage, and it also comes with 32 GB of LPDDR5X RAM, although you can choose another model with up to 64 GB of RAM. Honestly, I didn't have high expectations, especially considering the size of this device. I assure you, it feels even smaller in your hand. But anyway, I always like to put these devices to the test. Look, here I have 20 windows open with videos in 4K. And I've hit play on all of them, so they're running. I wanted to see if any of them would lag. But as you can see, every single one of them works perfectly. Therefore, it can be a great alternative as an external device. For example, to use it with a big screen, or even with up to 4 screens in 4K, because despite its size, this KDS Mind 2 can handle any kind of multimedia, no matter what you throw at it. Now then, let's move on to games. Is this mini PC capable of running games and running them relatively smoothly? And if it can run them, how does the thermal performance hold up? How is this mini PC able to cool itself? Well, I admit that my expectations were absolutely zero in this area when it comes to gaming. But as you can see, even the menu and the mouse work extremely smoothly, to my surprise. However, listen to this. This is what the fan would sound like at maximum power. And this is what this famous game would look like. Even though it's been out for a while, I like to test it in all my mini PC videos. This one in particular includes the Intel Core Ultra 155H with 16 cores, 22 threads, and up to 4.8 GH. It comes with Windows 11 and integrated Intel Arc graphics. In addition, the brand highlights its artificial intelligence capabilities thanks to this Intel NPU. And when it comes to heat dissipation, it includes liquid cooling, as I mentioned at the beginning, with a vapor chamber that combines pure copper fins and a magnetic levitation fan. And while it's true that it's not the loudest one I've tested, as I said at the beginning, you can definitely feel it heating up in certain scenarios, not just when gaming, but also when rendering videos. Still, nothing out of the ordinary for this type of device. Videos. Still, nothing out of the ordinary for this type of thin device. It's just that anyone looking for exactly that thinness, lightness, and power, in addition to this, and you can unplug it from the power with just the HDMI connected. And look, press the button and it powers back on. It has a built-in battery, and this is something that makes it unique. And now, let's talk about the price of this Khadas Mind 2. And I can assure you that even though it's much more powerful than the Apple Mac Mini, it's also much cheaper. And that's the one it should be compared to, the Apple Mac Mini, in my opinion. All right, there you have it. 1,170 euros for this model with 32 GB of RAM and 1 TB of storage. There's another cheaper model at 850 euros, which would have half the RAM, half the SSD, and also another top model with 64 GB and 2 TB for 1,590 euros. I'll include the purchase link in the video description below. As of today, if what you're looking for is the smallest, thinnest, and lightest mini PC in the world, and at the same time has a lot of power, and as a bonus, it has its own battery and doesn't need to be plugged in, this is the best alternative you can find on the market today. Without a doubt, a rare bird, as they say, one of those devices I love to try out on my channel. And although it's true that it has its own niche, out of all the mini PCs I've tested on this channel, and I've tried quite a few, without a doubt, it's the thinnest one, and it has a very interesting form factor with that built-in battery. That said, if there's anything, leave it in the comments. I had never seen a mini PC with these features before. And even though it's not really recommended for gaming, I could recommend it for video rendering, even for photo editing, for office work, multimedia, and so on. And of course, if the games aren't too demanding, it can run them well, or relatively well, like the one you saw earlier. And now, I hope you like this excellent mini PC. subscribe if you haven't already, and leave me a like so I can keep recording in these amazing places and keep bringing you unusual devices like this one. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. See you soon. Thank you.